Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our International Women's Day. A bit later than we had anticipated, but nonetheless, we're here. So my name is Lindsay Smith. I'm Head of Service for Justice Social Work in Glasgow, and I'm absolutely delighted to be leading up this panel tonight of exciting, experienced women who have a lot to say for themselves. So before we start, I'm going to just introduce you to who's on the panel. I'll just do it by their first name. So we have Michelle along at the end. We have Sharon. We have Diane. We have Lizzie. And then we have Sandra. So this event has been put together by the Glasgow Working Group on Women and Offending. And what we are wanting to do tonight is showcase some of our wonderful, some of them national resources, but local resources in Glasgow that work with women who are involved in the justice system. We all know that women involved in the justice system are challenged continually with structural inequalities and with a system that was designed by men for men, and we do have a continued need to start to support women better in this system. And it's projects like 218, Shine and Tomorrow's Women Glasgow that are able to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from these organisations about the services they provide. But can I ask you to send your comments if you're watching either via YouTube or Facebook? Can you ensure that you're logged in and put comments in the comments field so that we can put the questions to the panel members after the presentations? So without further ado, I'm going to lead on to the first presentation of the night, which is Tomorrow's Women Glasgow. And I'm going to hand over to Sharon and to Michelle. We have a video here, so I'll let the video come on.
In 2011, following Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons report on Cortonvale and the doubling of the female prison population in Scotland, a national strategy was called for. This strategy was published by the Commission on Women Offenders, chaired by Dame Angelini, with many wide-reaching recommendations. These included establishing community justice centres, which would be one-stop shops to enable women to access a consistent range of services to reduce reoffending and bring about positive change. Justice Partners in Glasgow pulled together a high-level group of public and third sector organisations to consider and implement the recommendations of the Commission. This resulted in the Glasgow Working Group on Women and Offending, which continues to guide strategic planning for women's justice services in Glasgow. From the beginning, co-production techniques were used to engage women who had been through the justice system, to find out what women needed and wanted to support them in desistance and to achieve positive outcomes in their lives. In May 2013, the Scottish Government provided funding to set up 16 community justice projects for women across Scotland, including Tomorrow's Women Glasgow, our Women's Justice Centre, bringing together a multidisciplinary core team to meet women's needs without any organisational barriers. Access to other services is also assisted through this team, integrating co-production, the arts and ongoing support for citizenship for women working with the service. In 2016, research from the Strathclyde University found that Tomorrow's Women Glasgow have developed a continuum of opportunities for co-production reflecting different women's capacities, interests and motivation at any given time. Because of the high levels of trauma for women involved in offending, all interventions are based on the trauma recovery model. This begins by establishing safety for women, listening and working on what they feel is important. This approach builds a trusting relationship and demonstrates the service does not give up. There is no limit on the length of engagement, allowing support for as long as it takes to maintain recovery in the community. When trust and safety are established, the service focuses on tailored interventions, such as support to attend appointments in specialist mental health nursing, psychology, and housing support. The women also direct other elements of the programme, such as cooking, fitness, vocational and other activities, all geared to preparing for moving beyond the service. There is direct access to partner information, including weekly police reports on arrest and new charges. This encourages frank and open conversations with key workers and engenders a culture of trust. This is critical to understanding the women's journey through justice systems and a focus on the most current and pressing issues. While other services across Scotland came to an end with the funding, in Glasgow, partners felt so strongly about the benefits of the service that they continued to commit resources to ensure it was sustained. All partners involved from the outset provided either financial or human resources to ensure the continuity of service for the women. These outcomes included a remarkable reduction in reoffending, with the most recent cohort of women tracked demonstrating between 87 and 89% reduction in reoffending compared to the 6 months prior to their engagement. The improved wellbeing outcomes for women are also vast, with improvements in mental health, reduction in substance use, entry into education, volunteering and employment, family reconciliation, and the accompanying wider positive impacts on the community. Tomorrow's Women has also attracted attention nationally and internationally and has hosted visits from Cabinet Secretaries, universities, NHS boards, local authorities from all over the UK and international delegations. The staff team and manager have also presented their learning to conferences and seminars and have endeavoured to share their learning wherever possible. The service also continues to evolve, based on the needs of the women they work with through embedded co-production, but also based upon the changing service landscape in the city. The range and scope of local services are wide and dynamic, and Tomorrow's Women continues to be involved in the developments in the city.
Hi, I'm Sharon from Tomorrow's Women Glasgow. As you've seen from the animation there, Tomorrow's Women Glasgow was set up as a result of the Angelini report back in 2011, looking at women offenders. We're a very unique service in the sense that we're a voluntary criminal justice social work team in Glasgow. So the women we work with us because they want to work with us, are not court ordered to come and engage with our service, which is really beneficial because often the women we work with have felt that things have been done to them rather than with them or with their consent. So we have the luxury of working with the women for as long as they need to address the kind of issues in their life, but from the basis that they want to engage with us. And if that changes over time, then we look at that, but there's no obligation from a court sense of the women working with us. Also, you'll have seen from that animation that there's a co-production in sense of we assess the women we work with, we look at what their needs are, and we look to address as many of them as possible, the issues that have led to their offending. Some of that we'll do in-house with regards to mental health and housing and structure of their time and day, but we also need to link in with third sector agencies, other services, and do co-production to address the needs of the women. I've got Michelle with me, who is a previous service user, and Michelle's happy to answer any questions that anyone's interested to put forward to her with regards to our service.
Thanks, Sharon. That was really useful. And I'm sure there will be loads of questions. And just to remind everybody, if you do have any questions for Sharon about 21A or Michelle about the service, then please do put in some comments or questions within the text. So I'll move us on to the next item, and it's 218. And Lizzie and Sandra are here from the 218 project, and I understand we have another video, short clip to watch. So I'll let that come on.
Here's how Turning Point Scotland sees the destructive cycle that impacts some women in Scotland. They grow up in a complex family environment, become traumatised by sexual, physical and mental abuse, and develop drug or alcohol dependencies to cope. They commit crime because of addiction, get caught, sentenced, detained, and when they're released, they live their lives the only way they know how. Back to addiction, back to offending, back to another conviction and another sentence. Turning Point Scotland has pioneered this leading service that can break the repeating destructive pattern to everyone's benefit. It's called the 218 service, a place to go to get to the root of the problem for women going through the justice system. to find out what's really going on with them in a safe, supportive but challenging environment. 218 is a programme of residential and community support. We deliver a holistic approach combining expertise in mental and physical health, trauma, relationships, as well as practical support. It's an opportunity for women to turn their life around, achieve self-awareness, provide hope for a more positive future. Our 218 service has achieved remarkable results and continues to develop as we face new challenges and new forms of dangers emerging in our communities. We provide hope, a tomorrow and a future for themselves and their families. 218 Turning Point Scotland, because people matter.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm the service manager at 218 Service, and this is Lizzie. We're here to represent the service today. As the little film showed, we are a justice service based in Glasgow city centre. We are trauma-informed with a compassion-focused approach, and that's really valued by us for the women that use the service. Women can actively engage in the group work programme and in one-to-one sessions. We settle women back into the service, and then we, at the end part of their service, that's called reintegration, and we work with tomorrow's women to resettle women back into their local community. We're happy to answer any questions. Myself and Lizzie is happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sandra. That's really useful. Thank you. So we're going to now we're going to now move on to Diane, who doesn't have a video, but she's just as good as in herself. So I'm going to pass on to yourself, Diane, just to give folk an overview of Shine and what Shine Mentoring Service do.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, just wanted to say it's a privilege to come on and be on the panel with you ladies. And Shine has worked closely with Tomorrow's Women and 218 Project. And for me, speaking about Shine, it's something I'm very passionate about. I've worked with the service now 4 years, and so we have, we're all over Scotland, our mentoring service, and we have specific areas. So the areas I cover are Glasgow and Renfrewshire. And we work with women who are in prison, who are remanded, a custodial sentence, and also women who are out in the community. We get referrals from social work, and we also get self-referrals from women also. The criteria to work with us is to be like on a CPO, so it's a community payback order, but we've opened that up now, and also drug treatment testing orders. So if women are on them and maybe they're going to breach an order, then the social work can send us in a referral. But it's a great service, and especially just specifically for women. And we support women with a host of things, and it could be like getting back into education, voluntary, just opportunities to build on their skill set and their self-esteem as well. For women being in prison, a lot of them are quite lost within that situation, and it's kind of try to build them back up and empower them to be able to come back out into the community and start living the life that they actually want. So we work with them for 6 months, but that can be dependent. And if there's a need to work with someone for longer, we could discuss that with their social work and work with them for longer. So our main aim is to reduce reoffending, so they don't keep that cycle of going back inside, keep them out as long as possible, build relationships again with their family, their children, and just like build their self-esteem. It's obviously through the pandemic, a lot of changes have happened where, mentors, usually if I have a woman that I'm working with, I would go and do a gate liberation with her, where I would go to the prison and get her on the morning that she's getting out, which is really daunting for anybody leaving prison, and then take her to various appointments. But through the pandemic, it's been difficult because of lockdown, but Shine was providing liberation packs which had contract mobile phones in them and stuff like that. So the women still had a way of making contact with family and also with services that they needed. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Diane. Yeah, you just reminded us about the challenges that we all faced during COVID and how we overcome them to continue to try and support women as best we can. But it was no mean feat, absolutely not. Okay, thank you. So we have two panel members and presentations coming from online, which is the wonders of technology these days. So I'm going to introduce Amy from Glasgow Girls Club. First of all, Amy, will I hand over to you?
Thanks, Lindsay. Likewise, really honoured to be here with such amazing organisations doing great work in Glasgow. Just to sort of give a bit of a background, the Girls Club is primarily we started off about 8 years ago, just working in community, focused on sort of teenage girls to start off with. We're actually based on a model from New York. I had sort of lived in New York for a couple of years and discovered this organisation over there and was doing amazing stuff and the sort of projects in the area of Manhattan. Sort of brought that back over here, did a couple of trips back and forth to New York with girls and young women from Glasgow coming from areas of sort of disadvantage. That progressed over the pandemic, or just before the pandemic. We had found that a space that we really had a good impact was within the sort of the areas of people, young women who were affected by crisis, who were at risk of crisis or who were coming out of crisis. So we decided that we were going to focus our attention on creating a framework for community connecting. So that was something that we were halfway through that at the start of the pandemic, and we had to quickly sort of look at how we reimagined that with a digital focus, which then brought us into creating an app, if you like, for that particular sort of framework that we started to put together, which was a database and a steering group. So that was the thing that actually brought us to where we are today with our journey with justice. Began to do we were commissioned to do an app with community justice that was wider than just for girls and young women, and it was wider than just people who were at risk of crisis. It was actually an app that we built called Let's Get, which is a platform for everyone who is impacted by the justice system to be able to connect back into their communities when they're being liberated from prison, or if they're just impacted in any way, and also for the families of people who are impacted by the justice system. So we set about doing that about a year and a half ago. We did a lot of research on what that had to include. We're now proud to say that that app has been launched. It has over 800 services on it, and it's available to everyone to download. I think we're going to put a link to it in the chat, or we're going to have a graphic with it as well. But we're extremely proud of it, and we're also, as I said at the start, we're really excited to sort of be part of the ecosystem now within justice, because we see some of the work that we had already done. And with some of the young women that we worked with before we began the journey with community justice, did have experience of the justice system, and we were able to we can look back on that now, and we can see how we actually were already having a really positive impact on some of the young women that we were already supporting before we were involved in justice. And now we're really excited to sort of be part of that journey going forward. We're currently working with Scottish Prison Services, being referred some women and some parents actually who are being liberated from sort of prison to come back into their communities, and just looking at the ways that I guess we can sort of support the amazing work that's been done with Shine and 218 and Tomorrow's Women, on that sort of really key sort of mentoring stage, in the ways that, you know, we're there to sort of take the reins, I guess, at that next stage, you know, when the women are looking to, you know, their careers out with that sort of part of their journey when they're just being liberated. So we're sort of there to support all those sort of things as well. And we do lots of different things in the community, as well as digital and technology and building apps. We actually do sort of a lot of creative workshops as well, which are really good engagement pieces for the women that we support. And again, just sort of because we are sort of across the board as well, just think it's really important to sort of highlight that just that sort of sense of identity for women who are returning after a prison period, that, you know, just that sort of being able to disidentify with that sense of the system that they've became involved with. So I guess from the Girls Club side of stuff, that, you know, being able to sort of make introductions into the wider community is a big thing that we hope to be able to do as well. So yeah, as I say, we're sort of kind of the new kids on the block, if you like, with the sort of justice sort of support side of stuff. We've built the app and sort of happy to be part of the conversation going forward as well. So thanks for having us.
Okay, thanks, Amy. That was really useful. Yeah, the app, we'll have to get a link to the app, because it's great, and it doesn't just only benefit women, it benefits a number of folk across who are involved in the justice system, but who are involved in social work services, health services across Glasgow. So it's really it's a great app that folk would benefit from, practitioners and service users and patients alike. So thank you, Amy, and I understand we're going to try and keep you connected and put questions to you later on. So yeah, let's see how that one goes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, thanks. So we're now going to move on to Ania, who's here from Media Education. Again, coming in remotely. So can you hear us, Ania? Yeah, you can. Yes, yeah. So can we just pass over to you, please?
Yeah, cool. So thank you so much for having us tonight. So I'm Ania Urbanowska. I'm from Media Education, and we are an Edinburgh-based community interest company, and we work across Scotland with adults, young people, community groups, organisations to create films, podcasts and zines about issues that affect people's lives. And then we try to take those messages and target and get them to targeted audiences. So very important part of us, I think we are a non-hierarchical organization. So we have equal pay and decision making. And this is also the way we try to work with the groups and people we work with, creating the non-hierarchical teams and present the work we produce together. And we currently are working with the Community Justice Glasgow to create a series of 5 films. And the film you're about to see today, Women in Justice System, is one of them. We also have films on subject about the importance of social enterprises in reducing offending and providing employment when people leave prison, through care, restorative justice, and diversion and prevention. So very different subjects. And then once the films are completed, what we are planning to do is to, with our lived experiences team, we're gonna take those films and try to reach as many audiences as possible with those films, and hoping that those films will raise awareness about a smarter way to approach justice and help counter some of the more mainstream media messages. And we aim to showcase some of the great work that is going in the city and enable people who are not part of the community justice to understand the breadth of the work taking place. So we have a film that we're just about to play, and the film that you're about to watch was made during lockdown. And it started by us bringing together a group of women and starting with running online as everyone was happening during the lockdown, online workshops on Zoom, and run over the weeks filmmaking workshops where we learn about storytelling using your own mobile phones, how to make films and edit films, and about structures of films and how to conduct interviews. And then women who created the media team have discussed the idea of the film and come up, identified with people they would like to interview. Then they conducted the interviews over the Zoom, sadly, but it still was, challenging and also very exciting thing to do. And and then we worked together we then take the interviews and put it together and edit, constantly communicating with the team, with the women group, how to make any changes and how the film should look at the end. So with no further ado, I will let you to watch the film, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'm happy to answer any question you might have. Thank you.
Probation orders was replaced back in 2011, and community payback orders were then imposed.
So any offence that after the 1st of February 2011 would be community payback orders. However, there is a large number of female offenders who are repeat offenders, and that's maybe been in relation to them undertaking short-term sentences.
Obviously prisons were overcrowded. Somebody maybe had failed to pay their TV licence and had been obviously given a fine for that. They were then given a short sentence along with more kind of serious offenders. And the thing that we looked at as well, how we support is the kind of more lower risk offender. And it was found that they're best supported in the community with the proper supports, because giving somebody a short sentence disrupts families, disrupts communities.
A lot of people coming through these services have had maybe traumatic pasts where they've not been able to kind of deal with what's happened to them, and the way of dealing with your problems is to lift drugs, to lift alcohol, just to kind of cope with your feelings and cope with the pressures of life. And unfortunately coming with that is like you end up breaking the law, trying to get money, you end up caught in that cycle of addiction and offending.
So for me, prison serves a purpose at times, but I believe in rehabilitation for women. I believe there should be centres for women where they can get their kids in. I know it's meant to be a punishment, but there's other ways and means that we can punish individuals without taking their kids, which then causes them more trauma.
Children also lose their primary caregiver, so we know majority of the time if dad goes to jail, mum and children still remain in the house and mum keeps it together. A lot of times that doesn't happen for kids whose mum's in prison.
Because the woman's the kind of rock in most families, isn't they? The woman's the glue in a family. It kind of holds everything together, and when you take the women away, especially if it's for a minor offence, and it has that knock-on effect through the full family.
Children can often end up in the care system, and there's also research showing that children whose parents have been incarcerated and have had that period of separation are also more at risk of offending themselves. In terms of community payback orders, which part of it would be a supervision requirement, and that can be anything up to 6 months to 3 years, and it would be depending on the severity of the kind of offence. And that part of that would be coming in and seeing a social worker on a regular basis who carries out offence focused work and looking at criminogenic needs and linking in the offender to appropriate services.
In my experience, a very positive impact in females is it allows them the opportunity to start addressing the issues that they've got that's brought them into offending. Also gives them a kind of opportunity to stabilise in the community.
I believe there's gaps in the system at times. I believe it's a certain criteria you need to fit to get into certain services within Glasgow. I believe it was the right time for me in my life, but I had to be willing to put in action to change my life too. So there's services there, but depending on how you are as a person at that time, and if you're really ready to change your life and put in the hard work, I believe you can break the cycle of offending by putting more support into place for individuals. We lack the support, we lack the knowledge, we lack, if we're talking about addiction. So a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people offend due to their addiction issues. So we need to treat the addiction. How do we treat the addiction? We treat it with trauma counselling, we treat it with rehabs, we treat it, and that's the stuff that we're lacking in services just now.
So my hope is by establishing a kind of forum that works with women who have had lived experience, for them then to come in and tell us what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Given that knowledge of them is also beneficial for shaping policies and shaping practice and how we do stuff. Gaining service user feedback as well is really beneficial.
Going forward, my hopes for women and their family being supported through the criminal justice system would be to have more community support. Instead of putting women in prison, have more places like the 218 project around the city, so that women don't have to be separated from their families, so that their kids aren't missing their mum or having to go to prison visits. You know, to have that kind of rolled out on a wider scale for women and their families going through the criminal justice system would be amazing.
So for me, it would be about rehabilitation for women, getting them an understanding of addiction and stuff like that, and most importantly, dealing with the trauma and why this woman's offending and why she's doing the stuff that she's doing, to then support her to be able to look after her kid.
Hello, welcome back. Thank you for the video, and we'll hear more from you hopefully as part of the panel questions, Ania, so thank you for that. So we do, so I'm getting questions sent to me in my phone, so please don't think I'm being rude, but I'm getting them sent on to me. So first question I have is for Michelle. The question is, Michelle, how do you feel Tomorrow's Women changed your life?
Well, at first, I didn't want to engage with Tomorrow's Women, and that was due to lack of trust with services. But they were really persistent, never gave up, and due to the fact that they never gave up, I went in. I was going in daily, which gave me structure in my week. I'd done a lot of work, trauma work, which led me to deal with my issues. And due to going in, I did deal with a lot of my issues, and I ended up getting put forward for paid work, and I ended up working with STV and a TV production, a prison drama actually that was filmed. It was aired there on Channel 4. So I gone for no one to engage to being a full-time paid work was amazing. So I just done it persistence. They were persistent with me, so I did change my life in a big way. I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. No, I think you've spoken honestly about the impact, and I think it's really important that services do stick.
Yep.
Because
they never gave up.
Never gave up.
Champing your door, and but I'm glad they did.
Yeah,
I really am.
Because sometimes it takes, a bit of encouragement to start to consider change and about what's possible, and it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. I've started going to Tomorrow's Women in 2019, and then COVID hit, so it was hard when COVID hit, but they were on the phone every week. It was good.
Good. Okay, thanks.
Gutted my time's done with them. I'd get back.
Back and volunteer.
Oh, do you know what? That's what I was just saying to Sharon there. Aye, definitely.
So I've got a question in for Sharon and for Sandra about the referral criteria. And is there a way for folk to refer in women who are not part of the justice system? So I'll come to Sharon first.
Yeah, I mean, Overall, our criteria is normally women who are on some sort of order, community payback order, a structured deferred sentence, or they're coming out of prison on a licence. However, we do understand that not all women will have that in place and they still will require support. They do have to be involved in offending. So, they might have outstanding court cases or they might have recently been involved in offending. We will look at their referral, their details on the referral in terms of their need. And if they do have the complex needs, that tends to be the women we work with, and there is a risk of reoffending, then yes, we would look at bringing them on. So they don't necessarily need to have that, court order in place. We would still look at that as somebody being referred in. We would look at that as a possibility. Yep.
Okay, that's useful for practitioners watching to know the criteria. Sandra, can I come to yourself just to give us an overview?
We're pretty much the same as what Sharon was saying. You need to be involved within the justice service, and you don't need to be on an order, but you need to have some involvement, and that could just be as little as pending charges. But most people that are using both of the services are using substances. And if you look at how they're funding that substance, is mostly through crime. And we spoke to one lady the other day about coming to 218, and she says, "Well, I don't have an order." And we said, "Well, how are you funding your substance?" And they says, "Well, I've just not been caught yet." So they are committing crimes. So if you know of somebody that is involved in some kind of crime, but perhaps not been on order, even just giving the services a phone and seeing how we can, because it's about working together and try to come up with a plan to get people or women into services to help improve all of their lives. So just give us a phone and ask the question if you're working with anybody you're thinking she's going to head towards an order or within a prison sentence.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Sandra. Lizzie, I've got a question for you here. What impact is 218 making to your life at the moment, and how's that turned things around for you?
Well, at the start I came out of prison and I asked my drug worker to refer me to 218. She done it. I only waited under 2 weeks. I went in. First of all, I was ready to leave, pack my bags and that, and I thought about what I was going to lose, because I've already lost half of my family, so I don't want to lose the rest of my family. And now I'm doing better, I'm not offending, I'm not using, I'm getting to see my daughter, I'm getting to see my mum, and I've nearly finished all my groups. I've learnt a lot out of my groups, and that's it, and I enjoy being in 218.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Lizzie. So can I now put a question to Ania from Media Education around about how the role of creative arts, what that plays in helping women recover and helping women in the justice system?
Bobby gets serious. Sandra, no.
Anya, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. I've got phone and lots of things here, so I wasn't sure which one. Sorry about that. I think it's a very interesting way of bringing certain issues to the wider audiences, as well as actually helping groups and people to build confidence and find way and interest and new skills into their lives as well. I had such an amazing time getting to know the women on this project and learning their experiences. And that's both from the media team as well from the people we interviewed. And I know probably lots of you know the people who we interviewed, the women who we interviewed. And it's the way how the art form and storytelling was used in there. It's so much more in it, I think. It's so much more. And I hope the films also find its way to get to the wider audiences as a maybe easier as a format that might be a bit more accessible and easier to find. And I don't know, I don't know if that answered the questions, but I think I find arts. I'm biased because I'm a filmmaker, but as a great way of sharing experiences and knowledge with people.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that response. Okay, we've got another question here in relation to the services. It's been observed that we've mentioned that the services work together, and some service users have worked with 218 and Tomorrow's Women Glasgow and Shine. But I suppose to all panel members, is it useful to be able to have a number of resources that do different things in the community? Michelle, you're nodding. Will I come to you
I would
first?
think so, because there's housing issues, there's addiction issues. So just all different people with all different needs. So it would be helpful if there was different services linked, so. I think we work from a very individualised point of view, so looking at a woman's needs. Some women's needs are so much that you actually do need to get other services involved.
Mental health.
Yeah, and for some women, it's about being really careful about what's too much, and it can be really overwhelming. So it's about really being observant and discussing with the women, what is each service providing for you? What are you getting from it? And do they need to be involved, or could that get picked up somebody else? Because Diana and I were just speaking beforehand about a client that we've got in common, and it's about, is there overlap? Or is there a need for two services to be involved? And for some women, that very much is the case. I have women who are working with 218, they might be working with myself, they might be working with a mental health nurse or housing officer. So for some women, it really is needed. It's just about tailoring that to each individual, really, yeah.
And you must find that, Diane, because you've got that overview of the women and the services that she's accessing and supporting women to access services.
I think with Tomorrow's Women, it's really good because they have a group work setting. So women that we have mentored in the past, and they've engaged with Tomorrow's Women, and then they get to meet other peers. And so what you're trying to get is them to build friendships of people all aiming to stay clean, to beat addiction, all that stuff. So the kind of mentoring role is quite a specific role, as in it's a one-to-one kind of role, and it's kind of try to build a trusting relationship, but a lot of it also is a lot of emotional support that we give to our women. For instance, I work with a girl just now who the full family background is they're all in addiction. She when I support her and she's able to speak to me, and sometimes I'm like, that's the only person she has. I'm the only person she has out with a circle that can maybe kind of steer her in the right direction. But again, I'm privileged that I get that opportunity for somebody to actually open up and trust me with their past issues, their trauma. And the lovely part is, after 6 months, hopefully, you just start to see that something's clicked and, things have changed. But, it's a lot of, women still have a lot of needs. I think housing, probably the housing needs is the most difficult. Trying to get someone housing when they've been in prison for a long time, try to get them secure housing and suitable housing rather than coming out of prison. Then they're doing well, they're stable on a prescription, then they come out and they're put into a hostel. That's just sometimes there's a feeling of somebody's getting set up to fail when that happens. So I think that's probably the most difficult part, is the housing situation when it comes to mentees.
Okay, thanks, Diane.
Yeah.
Sandra?
Yeah. I think there should be a variety of different pathways for women into recovery. For us sitting here, that you've got the mentoring and you've got Tomorrow's Women is the community side of it, and 218 is being the residential side. Some women are ready to come into residential and are able to come into residential. Some women are not able to come into residential, whereas Tomorrow's Women would be more appropriate for that woman. And that could be for a variety of different reasons. Maybe the woman needs to be home to look after the children, and she's not able to come into residential because she wants to keep hold of her children and look after that, let them go to school and then come into the programme work of Tomorrow's Women. Some women are able to have somebody looking after their children and come in and really focus on themselves and be, I call it really being selfish, and really focusing on your own needs. And I think that's a positive, and sometimes that word is probably more of a negative word. People interpret that as, but I think it's a time to be selfish, and we should all learn to be a wee bit more selfish. So, or else some women will touch base with 218, then go to Tomorrow's Women and have a bit of shine coming in and out at different times. So a variety of pathways into recovery is a good option, because no one shoe fits all for everybody, and there should be options like that.
Okay, you feel the same? Do you?
Yes.
You're able to come into residential, aren't you? Do you know, so you've that, do you know, a different set of circumstances maybe for other people, but you're now able to make that connection. So when Lizzie maybe leaves 218, she'll maybe then touch base with Tomorrow's Women, and our support won't end. It'll just continue into a different, journey.
No, it's really important that services complement each other, and that they're able to, if someone is in a residential setting, that there is a community resource there to support folk at different points. So I've got a really good question now, Michelle, Lizzie, both for you. How can services encourage other women to access their service?
Can't know how to answer that.
So, what was the carrot for you? What made you engage?
Trusting them, eventually building that trust, the perseverance with Tomorrow's Women, persistence with Tomorrow's Women, and learning to trust and building that relationship, I think was. And then you couldn't get me out of the place I was in 5 days a week. Didn't want to leave. It was great. But it was building the relationship with Tomorrow's Women.
Say that question again, will you, Lindsay?
So it's a question about, from Michelle and Lizzie's point of view, what's it about the service that, what do services need to do to make them more accessible to other women,
Yeah. I hear that time again that you says that services not giving up. That continually not taking no for an answer and chatting the door and like saying we missed you the day.
So many times I was like, I'm no answering the door, but they wouldn't go away, and
I think that's that persistence.
I've been about 19, 21, and it's been trying to get me in, and now I'm 37, and that's me just went in.
See, persistence pays off.
And that was them coming in and seeing me in the cells and that. That means so.
It's that stickability, isn't it? It's that not giving up and recognising that change comes at different points for people.
Yeah.
You've got to be ready. Everybody's different. Everybody reaches rock bottom. You need to be ready to do it. Yep. Yourself. You've got to hit rock bottom, I think. And then the only way is up after that.
Yeah. And it's having key services there at that point when you're wanting to go back up, isn't it? Yeah.
See, even having services, what's next? Because women will say how successful, or people will say how successful is 218. As successful as it is at the time, it's where the woman goes next. So she goes next to Tomorrow's Women, then to finish it, what's next? There always needs to, you need to provide something that's next, not just drop and finish and close and walk away.
Because I came in homeless and I'm still obviously waiting to get referred to like places and that.
So that's a key thing for you moving on, is to get
I'm too scared in case I leave and end up in the street. I've been told that won't happen. It's just in my head.
I think it's probably so scary because without safe, suitable accommodation, how can you move forwards? How can you do all the things that you've learned within 218?
because when I was outside, I was in hostels and all that, and I ended up in a bad way, and I was like, I need to go and do this, I need to go and do this for myself and for my kids, and I've lost my partner and that through drugs, so.
Okay, so moving on again, we've got a question for Amy from the Glasgow Girls Club. Amy, hopefully you can hear me. So someone has asked a question about how you keep your app up to date. You've obviously got a lot of resource information in it, but how do we keep it up to date, relevant?
Yes, it's a very good question. One of the first questions I think that we were asking ourselves at the start of the journey. We've put together basically it's a steering group that we're building across the city, and that encompasses a couple of different things, which basically gives communities the opportunity to become involved in keeping the app up to date and maintaining the integrity of the data that's on the app, because as most people know, that directories are famous for becoming out of date. So one of the things that we have is a sort of digital employability sort of program that trains people in sort of basic sort of digital skills on how they can essentially start looking at how they can map services in their local community, and how they can then add those services to the platform. So that's sort of something that we have in place, which we've called it DigiChamps. So it's basically a sort of a set program that we're working with partners throughout that steering group to look at sort of pipelines for people who are, it can be anyone in the community, but we are really passionate about opening that opportunity up to people who have been impacted by justice, so that it's a two-pronged thing, so that we're helping to keep the app up to date, but we're also helping to give people sort of digital skills and put them on a pathway towards a potential of a career in digital. Also, that links into some of the partners that we have, as I was sort of mentioning earlier on, about our sort of wider reach out into just the sort of employment landscape, if you like, through some of our own partners that have opportunities in areas like social media, marketing, PR, all those types of things. We are looking at how we can sort of continue to develop that pipeline, so that those opportunities, so for example, anyone that's coming through, if it was someone from Tomorrow's Women or something like that had expressed an interest in getting involved in digital, or thought they might like to get involved with just knowing what's in their community, because that's also the other part of it, is that people being involved in keeping the app up to date, they're going to be then keeping they might know already what's happening in their community, but if they don't, then that's going to be part of their task, is to say, well, what is happening in my local area, and that through that they can then sort of potentially get involved and interested in to the pipeline for a career in digital. So yeah, that's sort of the larger part of how we're doing it. But also there is the option on the platform for people to add information to the directory, or to get in touch with us if they see anything that is out of date. And we are sort of just continuing to build that. We have a network across the city of organisations that are aware of what we're doing, and partners on that steering group. So yeah, it's just an ongoing sort of process now, I guess, for us, and being part of the system, the sort of justice, the community justice sort of ecosystem. We're just always, our fingers sort of always on the pulse as to what's happening, what's new, I guess the main thing is when things become out of date, really, is that we really sort of need to keep an eye on those types of things. And we're pretty confident that sort of digital champs network can help us to do that, as well as provide opportunities for people to continue into a career, hopefully.
Okay, thanks, Amy. That was really useful explanation. Yeah, it's a huge piece of work, isn't it, maintaining that database? But absolutely, I hear there's opportunities in there for service users to get involved if they're interested in the piece of work. So that again is really, I'm sure it'll be really interesting to 218 in Tomorrow's Women. Okay, so I'll move on. I've got another question here from Tom, who's interested to hear how services positively respond. So we've got great examples of Shine, Tomorrow's Women Glasgow and 218 about how they respond to women in the justice system. He poses a question about, I wonder about what other parts of the justice system the panel members feel needs to change to reflect the needs and experiences of women better. So justice obviously is a huge machine with the courts, with SPS, with housing, as we've mentioned. So what parts of that need to change to respond better to the needs of women?
I would personally say, from my own experience of working in SPS prior to working in Tomorrow's Women Glasgow, I feel like I worked with female and male offenders for 16 years and had never heard the term trauma-informed practice. And I think that's a real shame. And it wasn't until I came to Tomorrow's Women that I heard that phrase. And when learning what that meant and how that changed how I worked with the women I worked with, I felt I had missed out on so much working within a prison setting, because I would have approached my job, my interactions with offenders and the work that I did so differently, thinking about why they were there rather than just looking at them as a prisoner. I know that the prison service, particularly with the women's custody units opening soon, I know that there's been a shift in that respect, and I know that there's a focus on trauma-informed approach and that they're training staff up. But I hope that that really makes a shift in the prison service, because I feel like it's really lacking. And, you know, I'm in and out the prison seeing women, and there are pockets of staff which, you know, really demonstrate what that means, but there's still also the kind of draconian attitudes that aren't really helpful working with offenders. So I would hope that in the coming years the prison service will make that shift, because I think it'd be beneficial for them and for the people that they're looking after. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Does anybody else feel that they want to comment?
I think that's. I think there's lots of things changing. You know, looking at the people on remand, looking at people getting sent, getting bail, you know, getting in custody for remand, and police cells. We're talking about the new CCUs opening, in one in Maryhill, one in Dundee. I think things are starting to change. They're maybe not changing as fast as we would like to see them. I think maybe how we send people to prison, you know, maybe when a woman goes to court that day, puts the kids into school and thinking that she's going to get a fine, and then all of a sudden she's in a way but up to Cottonville, and thinking, how did that happen? Is there some other way that they can plan? For instance, if the woman was going to court that day, instead of getting taken to court that day, could she come back next week? And then, do you know, is she able to go home, sort the children out, get the wains prepared for this somehow? Do you know that mummy's going away for a couple of weeks or whatever? Why does it need to happen there and then? Do you know, and that trauma, not even just for that woman, but for that whole family, the wains and everybody, do you know? And then the I don't know, how long does it take for a woman to get a phone call when she's in the prison to make sure the wains are all right and how they're getting picked up? Even just things like that. You know, why do you need to go to prison that day? I know it's different if you're at risk to other people, do you know, depending on what offence. But the women that we're talking about is going to prison for shoplifting and persistent shoplifting. Do you know, it's no high tariff offences that they're getting sent for. So maybe even something like that. Do you know, do you need to go to prison that day, that minute? Do you know, can you come back next week? Because I know other countries do that, don't they?
And I think it's, you know, try to look at more alternatives to custody, isn't it? It's, you know, sometimes working with women, as you say, you know, shoplifting, but why are they shoplifting? It's usually to feed a drug habit. Should they actually be in prison for that? Or is there alternatives? You know, so maybe more services for women to actually teach them the tools to live life. You know, kind of, because it's, I think for myself, you know, I sometimes have somebody who comes back to me maybe 3 times, and I'm thinking, well, it didn't work. We're going into prison, didn't work. So, you know, where are we going wrong? So trying to think of other alternatives to custody, I think would be really good.
And you've mentioned, Diana, also about homelessness and about getting that transition from prison to the community a lot better. What do you think would help improve that?
Sure, that's something I think we probably we all have issues.
TFFs and getting put in.
Yeah,
putting into
just
that
looking
rather
for
than putting into a hostel.
yeah, looking for more suitable accommodation for women, and again, trauma informed. You know, even for homeless services to be more trauma informed, and how, you know, housing services. And I understand, you know, that there's there's lack of accommodation. But when women are coming out of prison and they're traumatised, you know, they've got all these issues, and then they're put into a hostel.
Yeah, especially if you're stable on a prescription, you're going to be put into a hostel where there's wide drug use.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's,
so the thing is, relapse is then going to happen.
Risking you feel.
That happened to me when I got out of prison in December last year.
Yeah.
I got put into a hostel and I ended up gagging and all that. And
Because the environment you were in.
I ended up in a bad way.
So I really do believe that when women are coming out of prison, you know, the fears they have, but you know, they've been in prison, maybe it could be a year. They've built what they want when they come out to the community, but then straight away they're put into a hostel, and that will set them back. So I think really, as you said, more furnished accommodation for women, areas that near family, you know, rather than somebody being put in an area
the other side of the city.
Whether it's a hostel, a hotel, or supported accommodation, they're just all the same.
Yeah.
Drug use, alcohol use.
Okay, thanks. I've got a comment here saying how well Michelle and Lizzie are doing. Doing both well. Wish you all the best, both of you, and thank you for sharing your experience. So that's come in as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we've got another question around about media for Anya, if we can bring her back in again, and saying that those involved in making the films that you've pulled together, can this lead to them getting employment or entering further education if they become involved in?
Sorry, I missed part of your question. Can you hear me? Yeah, all good. Yeah. So I missed the second part of the question because internet just cut off there. But it was about media and the further education and further employment after getting involved.
Yeah, that was it. Yes.
Yeah, so through media education, like we over the last few years been developing a collaboration with Edinburgh College, where part of the projects we deliver, you can actually get like a qualifications and points to applying for education and certificates that is then given by Edinburgh College in media production. So if you work on any, if you involve with us in any kind of media project where you learn about filmmaking and you produce a film at the end in collaboration, then you easily can just get the certificate at the end of it, which is great. And that helps you to either apply for further education if you want to, or you have some sort of certificate to show you that you have got that experience. And I think some of the women and people we worked with actually kind of realized that they have lots of interest in media and filmmaking, and so hopefully some of them have done it, especially in going further education if they want to. But there's, I think, one of the ladies on the panel we mentioned about, I think, BBC or Channel 4 and stuff. There's lots of things that in Scotland happening at the moment where you can do apprenticeships and stuff within media, which hopefully people also can follow through and apply for. I think it's definitely lots of interest. And I think in terms of further employment, it's the whole kind of process of making a film. It's not just about the filmmaking skills. Lots of other transferable skills you pick up. It's like, you know, it's about communication and interview skills and so on. So I think that hopefully people can who go through the projects we run or other institutions, it's you know, it's so much more about getting more skills and knowledge other than just the filmmaking, because I mean, so many elements in it. Yeah. So So yeah, thank you.
We've got one additional question that's just come in from Kerry, and she's asking how she can get involved with media education.
Thank you for the question, Kerry. How you can get involved in media education? So we usually try to run projects in collaboration with other organizations. We don't really run projects on our own because we're a very small company. So, for example, the opportunity we had to work with the women group on the film, it was through the Community Justice Glasgow. So they approached us and we worked with them to deliver the projects. So because we're still such a small company, we don't run projects on its own. But I would suggest get in touch with us, and maybe there is a way how we can find some sort of funding or a way of working with individuals. But at the moment, yeah, it's more getting through other organizations and bringing projects together and writing applications together in collaboration with other organizations to run. But we also very open for suggestions and people to come and say, okay, I have this idea for a project. Why won't we try together to find the funding and how we can deliver and run with it? So there's that option. Thank you. And please Carrie, email us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so if I've got another question in, are all the women who work in 218 and Shine and Tomorrow's Women Glasgow, are the staff all women?
We currently are, yeah, but there has been a male member of staff at the service before, which I think is important. It's important that women have positive male role models. A lot of women have really bad experience of males in their lives, be it fathers or partners, brothers. So it's important that they know that all men are bad guys. But yeah, at the moment we do have an all-female team. Our service manager's a man. I should add that, sorry. But the actual face-to-face staff that deal with the clients at the moment, the women at the moment is all women. Yeah, we have had a man before, yeah. I don't know.
We don't have a gender specific when we put our recruitment out, put an advert out. We just put an advert out for a lead practitioner, sport practitioner, whatever it might be, and whoever applies is interviewed, but they're not employed based on their sex. And like Sharon was saying, it's really important to get good, strong male role models. We've got chef, we've got we've got lead practitioners in the service already that are. There is times where maybe women will say, "I don't want a man as a key worker," which we respect that, but then we can't have our male workers sitting doing nothing. So we'll maybe partner up with a co-key worker being a female, and we'll say, right, okay, say if it was Lizzie, say, right, okay, then William's your key worker, Sandra's your co-key worker, and whatever you can't talk to William about, go to Sandra about, but the two of them will communicate between the two of them. So that's the kind of setup that we have in the service, if that now happens. But understandably, the needs of a woman is more important when they come into the service, and if there's particular reasons, and we listen to that reason and respond to that.
Okay, thanks, Sandra.
With Shine, it's the exact same. We had a male Shine mentor before. I think currently, just now, it's all female staff, but male staff are welcome. So, as you say, it's important for the women to have that, positive role model. And the thing is some women may prefer a male member of staff. It's their preference. But I think, again, if somebody comes with the right skill set, whether male or female.
Okay, thank you. So I think we don't have any other questions coming in. I don't know if anybody on the panel, and including Amy and Ania, if they have any questions or comments just at this point. But does anybody have any comments? Given that we're here representing Glasgow's working group for women in offending. We're celebrating International Women's Day, albeit a bit late, but that'll not stop us from celebrating something. But is there anything else before we round up?
The only thing I would say is if anybody's got any queries or questions about the service, just to give us a phone. Do you know, they might not think that the women that they're working with is suitable or it meets the criteria, for instance 218, but if they phone us and just ask some questions where we can fit a service around about a woman, that's what we're able to do. So just make that phone call and ask the question.
Yeah, I think it's the same with ourselves at Tomorrow's Women. You know, we would much prefer someone phoned and asked about a service, you know, is a service applicable to this lady, and see if it isn't. There's loads of other services that would be able to suggest. You know, I think one of the things that really is really apparent is Glasgow has got lots of services.
It's just they don't get a recognition.
You don't always know, and if you don't know, you don't know. And from going in and out of different prisons across the country, one of the things that always sticks out to me is the amount of women that will come up and say, "Where's Tomorrow's Women in Inverness? Where's Tomorrow's Women in Dumfries?" And, you know, and if they don't have that in the local area, it's a real shame. But in Glasgow, we're lucky we've got loads of services. So if they can't fit in with one of our services, I'm sure we'll be able to recommend something else that would be suitable. Yeah.
And the beauty of Shine is it's national, isn't it?
Shine is national, but you know what you were saying there about, I've had a few women who've wanted referred to Tomorrow's Women, but because they don't stay in Glasgow, so it's like, it is a shame, isn't it? So maybe that's something else to consider, having it wider.
National bespoke response, one-stop shop in every
because it works, isn't it? It's like, look at what works and then spread that, make it bigger, you know.
Okay, so that just leads me to say thank you to the panel members, particularly Michelle and Lizzie, for sharing your experience and your honesty. I know, Michelle, you've been here, you've done a lot of public speaking. And poor Lizzie hasn't, you know. Well, you would never know. Absolutely, first of many. You would never know, but it's really important for us to get that voice in the room. So thank you for that, and certainly there's been a lot of thanks. There's another text message had come in there saying thank you, so appreciate that. But yes, so to Ania and Amy online, and Sandra, Diane and Sharon as well, thank you, and I hope folk have enjoyed this discussion. We've enjoyed it. We've actually forgot we've been on camera. We've just been sitting, we'll gab on. There's more sandwiches here, so we'll continue the conversation. But certainly we'll send out the links to the app and information on both services. So thank you for joining us this evening. Good night.
But I can't eat. Not allowed and don't sleep in my own